none of those pieces are really available anymore. But it was a really different experience at that time, and quite exciting.
Yeah, so if you are looking for us, if you go to digitalarts.siggraph.org, that's the Siggraph public-facing page for everything that we do. We also have an online community called Ning, which is, you can see this is rather dated. This is what we're using now. We're developing a new site for our social media presence, or not online presence, so don't judge that. But the content is here, the information is here about the Digital Power Show, links to the older shows, and also the call for submissions for new co-curators. So this is where we are now. You can see some links here. So there's two different ways to get in. We also encourage you to join our Facebook group, where we post a lot of the opportunities and things, and we've been starting to tweet out. I think we're going to activate our Twitter. There was a Twitter that was created in 2013 for Siggraph Arts that we're trying to figure out who owns, so we can take it over. So so we're having this as one of our main goals for the year in the digital arts community, to really embrace the tools that are out there and do more to share.
But this is an open forum, and you can join it and put stuff in there and share what you're doing and see what's going on around.
I think that's really valid, because when the Ning started first, that was one of the photos people portfolio. This gradually evolved into the online exhibition, and we're thinking about maybe curating things so that people have already got in their portfolio, or an artist of the month or something, a bit like you were talking about next week.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out too, this is the siggraph.org main website, and we have our call for submissions for Digital Power up here, and when we release a new show, it gets released through the whole Siggraph community, so it really amplifies the presence of this work. It's all too easy to create something on the web and then expect the adulation to flow in, but you really need to have some way to share and distribute that, and Siggraph is a very powerful way to do that. Any other questions or comments?
We're here to answer.
Yeah.
So you're in Scotland, and do you have digital art students, or you have?
Yes, I run a program called New Media Art.
Okay.
So we teach from fine art to almost like this production. So it's a hybrid degree program.
What city are you in?
Well, we have multi-cities campus. Well, we are based in Ayr, which is coastal.
Right.
And we collaborate with like TV productions and performance students. So we are very avant-garde in terms of the mixing, and that's why we're fascinated by how it becomes materialized as a physical exhibition.
And this is so important too, because you're in a geographic area where it isn't so easy to go in and see things in galleries. I mean, I found this living abroad. You reconnect, and you can feel connected and understand what's happening through these kinds of forums. And wow.
Our main campus is near Glasgow, so it's like 10 minutes train journey from Glasgow, so it's quite immense.
That's good.
But then the collaboration across the campus is quite difficult. So we are piloting this VR gallery collaboration with animation students and business students. So they're going to create the VR gallery, and then find a way to promote from business perspective, but also the artists, the students get to learn about how to create their own space, which doesn't come quite easily when you're young artists. So we are trying to incorporate these technologies.
So they'll have a lot of examples to rely on, and so they don't reinvent the wheel, as we say.
You mentioned something that I've been talking to some of my students about too, and I'd be curious to hear what you all think about this as well. The online exhibition that's in a virtual gallery setting, what is the value added of doing that? I was in the wonderful Sistine Chapel visualization yesterday, and seeing the immersive potential there, and being more of an academic, thinking, we could annotate it, and we could have art historians come in and talk about it, and then we could talk about the problematic ways in which they did da 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 da. But how is that the kind of direction that we see online exhibitions going? More of an immersive experience like that? Or do we want to go that way?
One of the reasons why we're introducing that initiative is because students can log into the screen. So they are very isolated from the context, but whereas when we encourage students to do a group shows, they're quite shy away from the idea of the dialogue. Whereas when they've been given the task of curatorial role in charge of a group show, they start seeing things differently, and also that affects their work.
Interesting.
Yeah, so the experience of curation. Yeah, we do that in digital humanities. We talk about that too, the idea that it's the process of creation, sometimes even more than whatever the product is, that's important. Yeah.
Because you really,
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's okay.
I think there'd be a lot of wonderful opportunity to have, you know, maybe even the jurors' comments about why they picked it and hearing their voices if you wanted to, so that you have more of a sort of like human to human response. But you would only have to, you know, have that option if you wanted to, so you could pursue it, but maybe you could have that type of thing available.
Right, on the easy chair submission and jury process, there is the opportunity for the juror to comment directly to the person who submitted the work
I guess I meant in the
in a public.
So making it visible, you know, juror number two, I shouldn't say juror number two, reviewer number two thought this was really infantile, but it was, no, not that, I'm kidding.
I
Yeah.
maybe I misspoke. You know how when you go into a museum, it's really interesting. There's actually been artists who have had exhibits of only the labels or have
Yeah.
done work without any labels, and how you experience work really different when you have verbal context or not verbal context. And you know, kind of looking at how the verbal works with the piece, maybe allowing the user to figure out how they wanted to interact with it, and maybe also have a deeper level. Like, I always love hearing jurors' comments about what they thought was so significant about the piece, but being able to access that in the final exhibit, not as a, you know, more as a public facing thing.
So adding the interpretation. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a good thing for us to explore, and you know we can bring that up with the jurors in the next show. Most of them are maybe a bit hesitant to, you know, reveal. Of course, if the work is selected, they're positive about it. You know,
That's
yeah,
what I meant, only the
yeah. Several of the women who are going to be on the jury for Digital Power do a lot of writing, and so I've already asked them if they would be willing to have some of their writing be on the website, and they're very interested to do that. You know, most of them, they've already written it. They're not going into a deep writing session because they won't get paid for anything, and that would, yeah. But they're all experts in a certain area, whether it's gaming or online writing or VR or different things like this. So.
Well, and we've been talking a bit in the some of my conversations with people this week about people who are not artists who want to understand the work. And of course, having an interpretive gloss from an art perspective is very important, but also having something about the technologies that were used, how they were used, where the innovations were there, helps to create a bridge. And that's something that we can do even more easily online maybe than we can do in person.
Bonnie.
I love this idea, and I'm just reflecting a little bit. When I was a freshman, I was in the freshman show, right, at school, young person that I'd never even taken an art history class before, okay? And the jurors went around to the selected works and explained why they selected them. And they were talking about my work in relationship to Monet, and I was like, who's this Monet guy, you know? And so I immediately had to run off to the library and look up who this guy was. And so it was a learning experience for me. But, and then just recently I was on the Kunti Raya jury, and we had to stand up in front of the audience, the jurors, and explain why we selected the finalists. And it's always, you know, if there's some kind of competition you know, I don't like that one. And so you begin to see the thinking process of the jury. But that leads me to my suggestion, and I think that one of the things that's really awesome about the web, where it's gone, it's not just publication of artworks and information and this sort of thing, but people are connecting to people. And you take a look at TED Talks and how incredibly popular TED Talks is. So if we had little video interviews, you know, somebody from the jury volunteers to talk about why the certain works were selected. It could be the curator. And you have little videos, you know, of, you know, holding up the work and, you know, flashing. It's just a possibility. So now you're connecting with a person.
That's a neat idea.
Yes.
Willie Fares from College of Charleston. We're a computer science program, and we have a community arts program, so we educate our students in both studio arts and programming. And in sort of following up on this theme of collaboration and bringing in different people and ideas, what has been your experience in your own schools and as you deal with art? If you want to make something interactive on the web, if you want to make a VR project, something interactive or immersive, often that's built using Unity game engine or some of these development tools. How do y'all approach getting in this knowledge of coding or software development to make this next generation of art?
That's probably.
Yeah, well, I can say at my university, I work at Duke University, where we have a major in visual media studies, and we have an MA and PhD in computational media arts and cultures. So we offer classes that are targeted to people who are either from the computer science area and are interested in going in this direction, or who are in the arts and are willing to try. And it's always a struggle, of course, because what you end up having is a class, say a Unity development class, where some of the people are really skilled at scripting but have no visual sense, and vice versa. And so we have them work in groups on projects throughout the semester. That's not a fail-safe solution, because then you get to the question of how are you going to grade this thing. But in addition to that, we have something we call Interdisciplinary Labs. We have the XR Studio, which is a place that people can come and work on projects that exist over a longer period. So instead of just trying to do something in a semester setting, they might come in and be part of a project team, you know, research project team. Or classes that will adopt a project and then have students work on it over multiple generations. And it just makes it a little bit easier. But also thinking about how to template some things. So, you know, an easy start, like with something like Unity or WebVR, so that you can begin to do something and have a positive result and then become curious. Well, how do I make it do what I want? Well, okay, you can just edit this variable or that variable. So that makes it more accessible for the arts students who have less experience. But we're also working with computer science right now to have their first year computer science course is Python. And so we're creating flavored modules that are, you know, Python for poets, you know, Python for people who are doing, you know, visual interactive arts. So just trying to think of it, but it's a hard question. It does rely on people being able to bridge those gaps, you know, having enough knowledge on both sides that they can actually help execute it. And it's not always perfectly supported by either program. You know, people in computer science will sometimes feel like this isn't serious, and people in the arts may also feel like it's not serious. So it's an emerging challenge.
I can just say, as end user of these programs, it's probably very important that there's a lot of testing done on different platforms, because the user experience needs to be quite straightforward and not too complicated, downloading this or downloading that. So, yeah. Bonnie.
I think a lot of times in computer science and fine arts, well, digital arts even, the students come with preconceived notions of what they're going to be studying. And one of the things that what they presented offers to you and that all other educators is an opportunity to give your students a breadth, a breadth of knowledge or a glimpse into all of these really interesting things that are being done around the world. So one of the give a research project, a number of research projects. And this is a, you know, an art class where they're actually creating art, digital art, you know, code and art and that sort of thing. But they have to research what other artists are doing. And we use all the exhibitions.
Great.
We use the Siggraph art show archives. And the students find things, and then they have to do presentations to the rest of the class. And one of the things I found over the last couple of years, as they're doing their presentations, they're like, I love this work. You know, they're really getting into it. I
That's great.
selected this one because it is awesome, you know, and then they explain it to the rest. And they never, I'm in the cornfield, I teach that guy, he's in the cornfield too. No, but my students don't go to major museums, they don't see that stuff. And so this offers them a glimpse into the awesome things that are happening around the world, and it gives them inspiration. So I just think, send your students back to those art shows, give them a project to investigate an artist, an artwork, and then present it to the class, and then say, well, how did they do that, right? How could we do something like that?
Yeah, I like the suggestion about templates. A couple weeks ago, I did a workshop with 4th through 7th graders to show them just the very beginnings of coding behind special effects animation art. And I gave them the script where they could create particle systems, make characters, animate, and I just gave them the spots where you can customize the textures and colors and, you know, color your own textures as hand in. And it becomes, you know, their own storytelling, and they're using, you know, JavaScript, and this is all done in like 5 days. So
Yeah.
you know, if anyone's interested in doing things like that, ways to connect some of the coding ideas into an arts curriculum with a minimum amount of time, you know, chat with them. I'm happy to connect with your art community.
Yeah, I think that sometimes you just said 5 days, and that makes me think sometimes boot camps and special experiences are really great supplement. Or I've done a lot of work with digital art historians, you know, people who don't know anything, and then they come away and they know some GIS, they know some web, and they know this and that. And then, you know, it's enough of a chunk to then know where to go next. So even if they don't end up being the developers themselves, they can have the conversation. And that's what I feel like a lot of us are trying to do, is figure out how to create people who are create in people the knowledge to be able to do that crossover. And then sometimes they do find that they want to go all the way themselves.
Anybody else? I think we're about at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, so again, if you want to submit to Digital Power, Activism, Advocacy, and the Influence of Women Online, please do. We have the postcards here. If you'd like to be a curator, we'll have information. It's actually online now, but we'll share that out as well. Thank you all for coming on
Thank
this
you.
last day. Let's go ahead and get started. We'll also be having this session recorded, and we'll put it online when it becomes available. So there'll be more opportunities to review some of the materials that we've talked about today. My name is Victoria Sabo. I'm the chair of the digital arts community here at Siggraph.
My name is Kathy Ray Huffman. I'm a member of the Digital Arts Community Committee, and I'm going to be kind of overviewing some of the exhibitions that our committee has organized. These are online exhibitions, they're juried, and they're selected from proposals. So we'll talk at the end about how you do that, if you have an idea, what it's entailed, and all of that. But first of all, we'll go over and look at what's been done. When did the digital arts community start, actually?
Wait, you should say that first.
Oh, yeah. We encourage you to take photos, and as we said, as Victoria said, it will be recorded, so you'll be able to go back and fact check us if you want. Okay. That's me. I'm an independent curator. I've been a member of the committee since 2015, and I joined after organizing an exhibition of digital video, which was called Enhanced Video. We'll look at that in a bit. And I got to know what the committee was about, and I was really positive. I've been curator for 40 years, And I very early got interested in artists working with computers and digital technology, as well as video, performance, audio, and all those things that contemporary art now embraces fully. But at the time, it was really a hard sell, I have to say. That's our logo. You'll see that on all of our projects, our postcards, the online exhibitions, everything. So that's how you know it's from us. So our online exhibitions are all curated and coordinated by volunteers. And I think that's something people don't always understand, is that we do this because we're passionate about it and we believe in it and the artists who make this work, and nobody is paying us to do it. All the exhibitions are peer-reviewed, so we choose professionals, artists, people who are knowledgeable about the topic that's being explored, and they go over. We use a software called EasyChair, and it's a very quick and easy way for jurors to look at the projects. When you apply, you can give photos, you can give video, audio content, links, and things like that. So you get the whole picture from looking at the EasyChair application. All of the exhibitions so far have been quite international in scope, and we rely on the jurors in some cases to really spread the word to their networks, and that's how this grows. All of our exhibitions meet Siggraph rights standards, and I have to say Siggraph is very careful about rights clearances, and authors must guarantee that they have the right to the music, to the audio, to the video material that they are including in their artworks. And our exhibitions are all hosted on the siggraph.org domain. And that, we're very proud of that, yeah. Okay, here's the members of the Digital Arts Community Committee. Victoria is the chair. Sue Goldfer is right here with the pink hair. She's also the chair of IZEA at the HQ. Jim Demers, who isn't here this year, one of the first years he hasn't been here. He helps us with all of our online hosting and technical things, especially. Bonnie Mitchell and Bonnie here? No.
She's here.
Yeah.
She's here.
Oh, just came in. Bonnie. Hayun Nam is here. Yep. Derek Ostrenko had just had to leave last night to go home. Jan Sirlman over here. Ruth West. John Hyatt, who lives in northern England. He isn't here. And myself. So we are hoping to increase our committee. This is always a possibility if you're interested to participate. Okay. So the first show I'm going to talk about is the aesthetics of gameplay. This was done in 2014. You can go to the exhibition online at this URL at the top, and this is what you'll see when you go there. These are all the different games. It was curated by Greg Garvey, who was a member of the DAC committee at that time. And he chose 45 game titles. And this was a very interesting project because at the time the game industry was just beginning to gather some kind of credibility in the art world and also in the Siggraph community. So you can read this yourself. I don't need to read the caption. That always irritates me. This is the exhibition that I organized, Enhanced Vision Digital Video. It was launched in 2015. I have to say it takes about a year, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, for these exhibitions to come together. From the concept to getting it approved, running it through the committee, sending out the call, having the jurors have time to look at everything. Then after the works are selected, then the hard work starts, because then we have to download all of the content, get the permissions and all of the rights clearances, get the website organized and up. So that's the other side of the story, of that background work. This was our promotional image that we used to you know, let people know that this was a possibility. And you can see it online. It's still there. All the videos for this show were uploaded to the server, so they're all there in their totality. We don't know if we can continue to do that because the space it takes is pretty humongous, as you can imagine. Although we did say we wanted shorter videos, under 10 minutes. So the other thing that I was really adamant about was that the digital videos were not just using technology, you know, in a kind of curious way, but that they really explored socially important issues, and that they used the digital technology to define those issues. Altered Books, Digital Interventions, 2015, and this is the PR image that we came up with. It was curated by Copper Giluth and Hayon here, and it was a really interesting look at how artists are using digital technology for the printed page. So most of the things are digital representations of the actual books. Some of them are digital books. Science of the Unseen, Digital Art Perspectives. There we go. So these exhibitions are examining a certain kind of field of work, like we had the video, we had the altered book, we had gameplay. So that's one curatorial investigation of how a certain technology is used. Science of the Unseen was looking at a topic, could be explored in a number of different ways, through video, through a book, through VR. So that's another curatorial investigation or another look at how we could organize an online show. These are two curators who were guest curators, and I think their exhibition is really interesting. If you're interested in science, you can go and see the projects that they were selected. Another show that was very recent was Immersive Expressions, virtual reality on the web. Now, this was not so easy because, you know, VR is something that you experience individually, usually in an environment, a physical environment. But this is a representation of the cardboard VR viewer, so it is possible to, you know, have a very cheap way to look at VR. And our team here came up with a device, and they designed it and had it manufactured, and we distributed them at the conference. It was our little swag gift.
Just one quick additional comment about this one. We also had the opportunity to view the content using other devices as well. So the cardboard was the sort of low barrier to entry, but you could also look at Oculus formats, et cetera, as well. That was a big innovation for us to try and think about all the different viewing platforms that people would use.
And it kind of caught the eye of a lot of people who thought maybe digital art, it's not for me, but when they crossed over into VR, something that they were exploring or interested in, that kind of brought together some communities in the Siggraph family. Designing Knowledge was our 2017 show, and this is the URL and the image that we used to promote it. And this was a very, I would say, heavily researched topic because it's looking at how big data is used and what kinds of big data environments there are. So our curators were both based in Finland, and this is something that they had been passionate about and researching for a long time. So their expertise came into play along with the people who were the jurors. Give you a chance to look at the... last year at Siggraph in Vancouver, we presented this exhibition, Origins and Journeys, and this was a committee response to the exhibition that was on view, which was curated by Andreas Burbano. So this was we can have postcards around of that too at our desk. But Andres' exhibition was called Original Narratives, and it was the first time we worked in tandem with the art gallery to create an exhibition that would be actually shown within that environment, as well as online.
Yeah, so this was really a departure for us because we wanted to think about how we could increase the dialogue between what happens at the conference and what happens throughout the year. Mm-hmm. It was a separate call, and we just arranged to have it be premiered at the same time as Siggraph, and it's something that we're experimenting further with now.
Yeah, and we encourage suggestions if you have some. So. Our current exhibition, which just launched this month, is The Urgency of Reality in a Hyper-Connected Age. On Monday, our curator for this show did a presentation and showed a number of works. This is very fresh for us, this exhibition, and it's curated by Dina Eber from Bowling Green State University. And her motivation was the way we are all sort of connected through this, the screens and the networks that we're all engaged with all the time through our phones, and especially young people, as she recognized as being a faculty member, what happens and how we had a lot of discussions about how the brains are actually changing on the younger generation for having this kind of connection. Okay. And the current one that we've just announced, and the application is open as of today, and I have to say we've already had some applications for the show. It's pretty amazing. I get a notice. We both do it. Whoa, what's going on? This is going to be big. And this is a topic that I proposed, and I'm quite passionate about, and I wanted to do something that showed women online, and it took me a while to come up with the actual title and focus. But with everything that's going on in the world today, and the Me Too generation, and the political importance of women's voices, I thought this could have some agency. So it's going to be an exhibition that focuses on the work of women, and these can be works that are from storytellers, from digital artists, designers, gamers, film video makers, and other kinds of content providers. So the idea of who is the artist here hopefully will expand a bit. I would hope that all the works will be work that inspires and empowers women and supports especially the younger generation of women. It will be peer-reviewed, and the jury will all be female. I think it's an important moment in history, and I think women's voices need to be heard wide and far. And I also am very adamant that it be international, intergenerational, and cross-disciplinary. Most of our exhibitions are newer works created within the last few years. We haven't really done a historical show, but that could change and could be a very good idea if somebody wants to propose that. But that's the postcard, and we have some here on the table if you haven't already gotten one. And we're going to be accepting proposals for the call for submissions until December the 16th. So there's plenty of time, and we're preparing ourselves as we speak.
And just another word about that, it's by and about women, women-identified people, so
Right.
It's not meant to be exclusionary in that way.
But I do expect there will be some, crank submissions, and I've worked in female organizations and communities, and there's always some opposition, and well, what about men, and there's nothing against men. This is not an anti-men in any way. It's just to give a chance for women to support one another and to see what they have to say and point it out. Okay. So now we will talk a little bit about how do you submit and what are we looking for, and we're willing to sit and talk with you one-on-one if you would like.
Even during this session.
Yeah,
we
even
can
during
have
the
some
session,
discussion.
if you have questions about it. That went quite fast, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, so in terms of doing an online exhibition yourself, what we've given you is an overview of what we've done over the last several years to give you a sense of the flavor of the types of things that people have done. Some of the best co-curated exhibits are the ones that will make sense as a web presentation. So if you look at all of these, what we're mostly showing is works that can be shown in more or less their original form online, although we sometimes do have documentation of work that people have done, if it's an exhibit or an object or something like that. So we're open to that possibility, but we want it to be something that is really complementary to the on-site experience that you can have here at the conference. We also wanted to provide a space to explore different kinds of themes that are emerging in the digital arts, media arts community that might not otherwise have an as easy access, but that also would be of interest to the Siggraph community as a whole. One of the perpetual questions we're asking is, what's the relationship of the digital arts community to the broader Siggraph community? And one of the ways that we think we can really contribute is to bring artists forward and to introduce them into this setting to be inspiration, as well as for the artists themselves to learn more about what's going on, whether it's in ETech or technical papers or any place else, so that they can really push boundaries there too. The partnerships that the digital arts community has with Leonardo and Isaiah are also meant to help us to further those conversations as well. But in terms of the online shows, what you can expect if you're a guest curator is that you'd be working closely with the digital arts community team throughout. We work on the call together, we create the online submissions, we circulate publicity, we set up the submission system, we're involved in the jury process, and since this is also associated with our names, we also have veto power if there's something that we think is inappropriate. We manage the permissions, and then depending upon the individual curator's interests, we may design most of the platform for distribution, or they can also bring somebody in to help do that as well. We do want to create something that is sustainable, at least for a few years. Now that we've been doing this for several years, we're starting to think a lot about, well, when is the moment that we need to take this offline as a live show and make it more of an archived show? And that's where the Digital Art Show Archives project comes in as well. So as we continue this project as the digital arts community, we're also realizing we're part of a larger conversation around documentation and sharing and history making for digital arts. And that could itself be a subject of a show potentially. So we do have an online form. It's just on the Siggraph or the Digital Arts Ning community site, which is for calls for proposals, and we'll send out emails and post things online on our Facebook group as well to show the different ways that you could do that. We're also happy to take any questions that you all may have, either about what we've done, about digital power, or about ways that you might become a co-curator as well.
One of the things I was just thinking about while Victoria was talking is the artists and projects that tend to be part of our exhibitions are not so much works at developing technologies. They're not artists who are actually working on coding per se, but it's artists using all of these technologies that have been developed and using them to tell stories, to give you new experiences, to involve you in some way. And I think we are looking at things like apps for mobile phones. This is will be a category that people might submit for the exhibition. Blogs and vlogs and online writing, things like this. So it's not all graphical works. They can be also text. And I think we'll have a few texts on the website for Digital Power, which hopefully we'll all read.
Yeah, we had in for urgency and for other
Yes,
shows
yes.
as well. Yeah. So that's the end of our formal presentation, but we're very happy to take questions about the online exhibitions, whatever aspect.
How accessible, I'm a full-time faculty member in Scotland,
Yes.
Oh.
and obviously it's quite important. We can have archives online and then make recommendations to our students, but then it's quite important to watch them together
Mhm.
in more shared environments. I was wondering whether, in terms of copyright, whether it's okay for the faculties organize kind of small screening for the students together in their facilities, or to access that.
Well, it's not a
Well,
problem.
they're on the open web, so in that sense, yes, because we have permissions to show them on the web.
So is there
Yeah.
any materials that's not been archived online or haven't been shown in the installation environment?
Well, these shows are specifically meant for online distribution. The art shows that are here at Siggraph North America and Siggraph Asia get documented in a different way, and those are in the digital art archives that we've presented about here. But it is possible for this to include people documenting an installation. The installation itself, how much get documented, how much would be documented would depend upon whoever was submitting their work for the show. And we have had that happen too, that we'll have things that are in one of our online shows that is basically a video of somebody showing a thing that they did. So that does happen sometimes as well. And it's always a challenge when you're thinking about rights management if somebody created a compilation of works by somebody else that seemed fair use in one context but not another, which is why we do go through the Siggraph rights forms, the same ones that they used for the conference, in order to make sure we're legit. But yeah, I mean, I think that given that this is all on the open web, I think you could share
okay.
it in the ways that you would want.
And I
Yeah.
like that idea, actually. I think
Yeah.
it's a good discussion forum for.
Yeah, Bonnie wanted to
okay.
comment on that.
Bonnie.
Well, I actually want to comment on something a little different.
Okay.
The first exhibitions were put together at a time when academia really didn't accept online submission of artwork as a valid merit point, right? And so you get your work accepted to this website, so what, right? And now we're at this point where I think you guys, the digital art community, has really helped to elevate the status where academia is looking at these exhibitions as being as valid as physical space exhibitions. And that's kind of a turning point that's happened in the last few years, and I know that some of you probably work at universities that still are grappling with that, right? If an artist has work accepted to an online show, is that as valid as that gallery down the road, right?
But it seems so like a no-brainer because it's online work. It should be in an online show,
It's still,
And
they're
I-
operating,
from
office
another
works in
set of
art
circum.
schools,
Yeah.
You're comparing these digital
Right.
artists with painters
Yeah.
and printmakers, and so it's the physical space and the prestige of the
Right.
physical space and the reputation of the organization that matters, and that's where, working directly with Siggraph has helped to elevate the status of online shows.
Right. No, I know this problem. I did some catalogs at one point of artists' works, and I made the actual catalog a DVD that was inside a book with some images. But so the author's texts were on the DVD, and there were a couple who were just absolutely, oh no, this won't count. It's not in print. And I said, but it is in print. It's just in digital print, But they said, oh no. And so that was a point that I really came home to me personally. So hopefully that's changed now for most writers.
I just wanted to show this, and the urgency of reality. This is the latest show that we've been sharing. This eyes piece, if you went to the art gallery, you may have seen that it's actually also an installation in the art gallery and has been documented here, but in a way that is, not the same. You can watch the video, you can read about it here, but then of course you can have the installation experience as well. So this is more likely the kind of thing that would show up in one of our shows. The VR examples are a little bit different because they're things that we could actually use web VR. The whole point of that show was web VR, so we really wanted it to be available. So there is crossover. And we talked before about the Origins and Journeys show. This was an interesting experiment for us because Andres, the curator of the physical exhibition, had his idea, and then I wanted to expand it to this idea of journeys. And so the pieces that we have here were not shown as exhibition pieces, but we did have one video that was kind of about the history of this type of work that was on a screen in the art gallery. And then we had another kiosk in the art gallery where people could see the supplementary material. So those types of relationships are possible as well. We've also been talking to Art Papers venue about ways to have supplements. Everardo Reyes, who's right here, did some digital supplements this year with Art Papers, and we've been thinking about ways to make more of a dialogue happening there as well. So it's an open field. We created this opportunity, it was before I was on the DAC, but the team created this opportunity to provide another space. But it's also an experiment to see what else we can do.
Yeah, we worked out a lot of, technical kinks along the way of how to get the juries, lined up, and especially the rights clearance. This becomes quite an ambitious undertaking because some of the artists, it takes a lot of talking about what are they actually giving up, because they have to sign away the rights of their work to have it shown on the Siggraph domain. They have
Well,
to.
they're not signing them away, but
Well, no,
they're
not giving them to us,
acknowledging that you
but
can do it.
that we can do it, yeah, and that they have the right of everything that's in their work.
So this is an example of a slightly different kind of project,
Right.
Designing Knowledge, which was trying to do a sort of meta-analysis of the ways that people do archives. And in this case, the curators created their own interface that we helped them to put online. And it's, you can see it's similar in that it has the sort of grid of content, but it's adapted to their own interests. Another thing, the immersive expressions the one I've mentioned a couple times about VR, AR, this was one of the first times that we really, hopefully it's going to come up now, where we really ran up against the limits of us being able to put things on our own servers versus linking out, in part because we had some companies involved in sharing their work and they didn't particularly want to give us the code. But then there's also just people being proprietary in general about code. And so what we've done here is in some cases have links out to their own sites. But then as we get into the process of documentation, we'll still need to think about, okay, so what are we going to do? Are we just going to screenshot it? Are we going to make a short video? So in some of our future shows, what we plan to do is ask for self-documentation by the artists, even in a limited form, so that we have something that can be shared, a little video or something like that, after the live link is gone. So it's, again, this process of trying to make sure how we can keep the history that we're creating going, but also being realistic about what we can actually accomplish and not try and expect to have everything running perpetually, volunteer efforts, et cetera, et cetera.
So, what would you like to know that we haven't told you? Do any of you look at online exhibitions or artworks online? Have you explored this kind of level of experiencing work?
Looks like we might have a question here.
Yes,
Or you-
okay.
Oh, no, you're just saying yes.
I just wanted to say, yes, I think it's really interesting. One of the more exciting opportunities I had was when the sort of high-end gallery world first was moving into online for actual art sales. There was a VIP exhibit that was really, really interesting. They really helped overcome some of the obstacles to see artwork
it was a pretty good experience to build some kind of artist community together. And you have a lot of support. So we have a volunteer for designer and graphic designer, and a lot of jurors and reviewers. So it was really valuable experience for me. So we have call for curator every year. So it's really interactive and maybe I can give you more information. Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good point. You know, we talk about having a curator, but it's really a concept, and then it's a team effort to execute it, and it provides an opportunity to have an extended conversation around a topic as well. So we would certainly be open to, for example, co-curators suggesting they wanted to do something with us, and people will often have a member, a jury team or a program committee that they bring to the table, who then also become part of the conversation. So it's not that our committee is the only ones who act as the jurors, far from it. We're part of it, but we definitely want to embrace whatever community wants to work with us.
I would say the curator or the organizer would be responsible to lead the
Yeah.
everything and keep everybody on track and make sure the jurors, you know, do their work on time and all of that. So
Yeah.
there is a
Yeah, you don't have to
responsibility.
take responsibility. Yeah.
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 The committee is there to back you up. Yeah, and it's a long history of online exhibitions. I have to say, I curated one of the first online exhibitions in 1995 for this Ars Electronica server, and it was an exhibition of work by women. And every month during the whole year, I selected one project and went up on their website, and then they accumulated. And I love the title of the show. It was called Darlinks. So a lot of those pieces, however, are now offline. You know, in those times, there were servers, and then the servers folded, or they were sold to commercial entities. They were like free at the time, and then they went into, everybody lost their login. So